They said I don't have to wear a mask.
Goodness.
So, yeah, I was
imagine trying to breathe through contractions.
Yeah, which I'm like, okay. I'm glad there's that exception clause.
Y'all are behaving really nicely out here.
So excited, and then he gets here and is like so mean to them. So after, it's just kids and selfishness.
It's just age, yep.
You should.
Gideon, say, I'm okay, I'm tough.
Hey, can you give him a hug? Hey, you shouldn't.
Hey guys, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. I hope you guys are having a great day. It is March 30th, spring cleaning. I hope you are having one of those springs where it's like 70 degrees in one day and then it's like 40 the next, or maybe 30. That's what it's like here in Minnesota. And in the middle of all of that, this is a very big week for people that are Christians because there's Easter Sunday coming up, which is the resurrection of Jesus Christ. So with the resurrection means a Duggar Easter special where they talk about God for literally the whole episode. Yes, that actually happened. I have to start this out with the Duggars have been a mainstay on this channel. There is something about them that you guys, we can't look away from, and the show itself is kind of it's a hot mess. And a lot of times people have gotten very attached to the ladies or the kids. And there's been this really weirdness on the show in the last several years because some people have left, and then there's this just fakeness, overall fakeness. And then there's some of the ladies or the kids just looking like they're miserable when they're filming.
Very little interest in her hat. There you go.
It's too big. And this was not any different. This was a weird special, and it was called Counting On a New Life. Almost like this was going to be like introduction to the next journey of Counting On, but there was no discussion about if Counting On was continuing. It was very bizarre, and it seemed very thrown together, and it seemed very like, I don't even know, like they needed to get something out there because there's been so much press lately and all these leaks. And it seems like something is seriously going on with this family because I got this vibe that there's something deep here, because the show, which normally features most of their kids, didn't feature many of them at all. And I don't know if it's because new Discovery Plus and having to have different contracts and maybe some of the kids wanting to get paid, or if it's just that some of the kids are just done with the show and they want to move on. But this show will be more memorable for who wasn't on the show than who actually was. During the episode, there was Jessa, who was literally in every scene. Jessa is working overtime for that new house. So Jessa was featured of the daughters, and then Joyanna. And Jana was in a few scenes, not a ton, featuring Jana, and then Anna Duggar was around a little bit as well. Not in this episode at all, Ginger. Like Ginger wasn't in it for even a second. And they only mentioned Ginger in passing during a Bible study. And the Bible study was weird because all they did was shared their testimonies of how they got to become more godly. It felt really weird because God was a central focus of it, and I get it that it's an Easter special. Now, I understand that the Duggars are very faithful, and God is a very central focus of Easter. But this episode was different because it felt like they didn't really talk very much about the family, but instead it was like literally about a Bible study, and then it was like all of their testimonies of how they found God. And it's weird because Jim and Shelly have these stories, and their stories of finding God were very different.
Boy, did I have a lot of baggage. I literally know Jesus turned me from darkness to light.
When I was 7, I realized that I was a sinner. I'd done things wrong.
I don't know if they did like sort of a hybrid or they were doing sort of like a high level testimony, but they did theirs. And then they were sitting in the church, the schoolhouse, the converted schoolhouse that Jana built. Now, they said, sometimes we like to get it together at church. I did tell you that Jim Bob appeared to have, or has allegedly had, a falling out with Paul Caldwell. And I also told you that they've been doing some of their own ministry or home churches at the converted schoolhouse.
To Jesus and ask him to forgive me for the things I'd done wrong and turn over the control of my life to him.
So they all were sitting on the stage at the converted schoolhouse that they put to the church, and Joe and Kendra are sitting there.
And my mom, I think she could just sense that I was trying to do the right thing, but it really wasn't coming from my heart.
John and Abby, who don't even really say anything.
It's huge.
Good.
So when did you come to know the
And then
Lord, Ben?
Jessa and Ben.
Struggles of conscience, just growing up, like struggling with guilt and
Jessa
things.
and Ben shared their testimony. Kendra shared hers. And then Joe didn't really say anything. And John and Abby, I don't know if they were just there for moral support or what, but they were really quiet as well. This was where Jessa looked miserable. Like, I don't think Jessa looked happy the entire time she was filming. Even when she was making Easter eggs with the kids, which should have been a very exciting and happy time, she was more concerned about the kids knocking off mason jars. So she decided to use mason jars because she found a mom hack where if you put the egg in a whisk and then you drop the whisk into a mason jar, it'll not be as messy for making dyed eggs, which was weird. But she was so concerned about the kids not getting dirty and not getting messy that I felt like she didn't enjoy at all what the kids were doing. And she was so busy.
And I heard from a friend this cool mom hack where you can use a whisk and a mason jar to make this process of dyeing eggs as mess-free as possible.
In a way, kind of babysitting or delegating what the kids were doing. And she was there by herself. So it was her and the 3 kids. I don't know where Ben was. I don't know if Ben was working, but it was her and her 3 kids. There was no other sister that joined. Usually when they do stuff like that, it's like they do it all together, but Jessa just did it with her kids and that was it. So again, it was weird. And when Joy showed up, it was just Joy by herself. Austin was not in this episode at all. So you have Jessa and Ben who don't look happy. She's talking about how she's had this like really contentious and self-centered and self-conceited and blah, blah, blah attitude her whole life, which affected her relationships with her sister. And she talks about how she and Jana weren't very close. She also talks about how she doesn't have patience when it comes to parenting. And then Ben said that he and Jessa have had a lot of issues when it comes to parenting. Now, some of you guys thought that their parenting issues could come from and stem from Jessa learning and growing up with training up the child and the training aspect of childhood and the rod. And does Ben not agree with the blanket training? Does Ben not agree with some of the tactics that she uses that her parents used on her? She has never denounced blanket training. The kids are often seen standing on blankets, like Ivy specifically, when she was really little, would be like on the blanket. And you could tell she was trained because she would not walk off that blanket, which is really weird for a toddler. So I wonder sometimes, does she lose her temper? And she says that she wants the patience of her mom, but she doesn't have it. And Ben says they have a lot of disagreements when it comes to their ways of parenting. I get the sense that Ben is probably a lot more laid back than Jessa. I get the sense that Ben is kind of the parent that's a little bit less intense. And Jessa just felt really intense and really upset this entire episode. Again, I can't even impress to you enough how much of a scowl she had on her face during the Bible study, how much she looked annoyed when she was doing the Easter eggs with her kids. And then they get all the way over to the house, the big house, and they're making empty tombs with rolls and marshmallows and angel eggs. That's right. The Duggars are so scared of devils that they won't even eat deviled eggs. They have to call them angel eggs.
Jessa's bringing some dyed eggs and they're hard-boiled, right?
Jess is bringing over some colored eggs that we're gonna make yellow pocket angel eggs with. And then we're
so weird. It's deviled. It's like mixing. That's what it's called. And they act like it's something they invented. It was so bizarre. We put this in it and this in it and this in it. It's like, girl, that's literally, that's deviled eggs. It's a thing. Calling it an angel egg and pretending like you made up the recipe, Michelle, doesn't make it any more your recipe. But anyways. Oh, and I forgot the part where they all made hats. how did I forget that part? All the kids made bonnets where Anna was there and Jessa was there. And Anna was there and she was like worried about the kids with their glue guns. The kids' hats were pretty, I don't know, some of them were okay. Some of them were not. I totally forgot about the bonnets. They were like really obsessed with the bonnets. But once they made the bonnets or the hats, you know, the boys liked Marcus's or someone, and Anna and Jessa were just like, oh, some of the kids are just gonna look funny. Now Anna, interestingly, was wearing loose-fitting clothing and you couldn't really tell if she had a bump at all. It was hard to tell at all. She was in it. Josh was not there, obviously, but her kids were. They go to the Duggars and after they have all the bonnet stuff and after they've done the dyeing, they're making the tomb stuff, they're making the angel eggs. And it's really bizarre because normally the girls look really happy, but then the 4 little girls were talking and they were trying to introduce the angel eggs or something like that. And they looked so unhappy, like they looked so angry, they looked annoyed. Normally we would have seen like Justin and Jackson and Jed and Jeremiah. Nope. Justin wasn't there, Jed wasn't there, Jeremiah wasn't there, James wasn't there, Ginger wasn't there, and Josiah and Lauren weren't there. So there was a lot of kids not there that are normally there, and the Duggars were really weird about it. They were just like, Jim Bob's like, well, you know, as we're getting older, it's harder to get kids all in one place.
As our family gets bigger, sometimes it's hard to get everybody together. So we're so happy for you guys.
And I'm sitting there thinking, like, that's such a lie, Jim. You just had all the kids at your house for the fall party that wasn't filmed by TLC. You had the huge party for New Year's Eve and all the kids were there. But when TLC shows up, none of them are there. Jed's not there. Jer's not there. Justin's not there. I mean, Justin, for all intents and purposes, had just gotten married, maybe. So that could explain why he wasn't there. But like Jed and Jeremiah not being there was odd to me. And same with James. Like James lives there. Or maybe he doesn't. Maybe he moved out. I don't know. Jason showed up at the very end to sing Amazing Grace, which was also like a weird addition. And then there was really, the only other part that was remotely interesting was the birth of Brooklyn. And I'm sorry this is all out of order because that's how confusing this episode was. So Kendra has her baby, Brooklyn, and they say that they like the name Brooklyn because that's Josie's middle name or something like that, and I don't even remember. Anyways, they have the baby, she has a natural birth, they talk about getting ready for the birth, blah, blah, blah. She has Joseph there with her and I think her mom, but her mom did not appear on camera. So Kendra then brings the baby over to the Duggars' house to meet everyone, and they do a prayer, they eat their food. It's just so bizarre, you guys. And then Jim being like, well, it's hard to get all the kids together. It's like, what? This is so weird. I can't even describe how weird I felt, which makes me feel like some of the stuff that we've been seeing online matches what's going on in the Duggars. And then at the very end, Jim Bob and Michelle tease like, we're so excited to see these budding relationships. But the only relationship we knew about at the time this would have been filmed that they've publicly announced is Justin and Claire. So I don't know who they're talking about. And then they also said they're looking forward to more babies this year. But the only person that's been publicly announced as pregnant is Jessa. So whose other baby is coming? Like, did we miss an announcement? It seems like something's going on. Either the show, this was like a special put together very like haphazardly and they couldn't get enough like people signed or people paid or whatever, or just enough of the kids have finally had it and they're not going to film, or something serious is going on with the Duggars that kids are just staying away. And I don't know I can't explain it. The Duggars never publicly made an announcement about Justin and Claire. There was no discussion about Justin or Claire or their wedding during this episode. No discussion about Jed getting married literally this week. No discussion about a potential courtship between Jana and Steven or Jeremiah and Hannah. So I'm not sure what's going on, but this felt like it was like, this might be the end. And I don't know if that's true. But if you don't know, and I don't know, tell me what your thoughts were about all of this. And again, I'm sorry it's totally out of order, but this was a mess. And something serious is going on in Duggartown. Tell me what your thoughts are in the comments below. Bye, guys.